You are more than teachers. You are more than educators. Every day you change brains. So you are a neurocognitive engineer. That's the only people in our lives that can change the facility of the brain to read and write, our teachers. So you are a neurocognitive engineer. I want you to own that, write it down. That's your new title. Tell them at the next meeting, you're saying, hey, I am Leta, I'm a neurocognitive engineer, and that's your new title. Because really, if you go to the doctor and say, I would like you to improve my brain, they will tell you, get a teacher. They can't do that for us. Only teachers can do that. So that's your new title. So we've had these things, spent money, done the training, and all of them have a small impact. It is the accumulation of tiny drips of water that flood a system. So my journey, I can see it clearly when I look back on it. But when you're in the midst of that change, it doesn't feel that way, right? Your valleys don't feel like opportunities, right? They just feel like a valley. But there's a mountaintop ahead. There's a way for you to get to where you're going. The day that I left Southeast Elementary, which is where I've taught for 7 years in an inclusion classroom, I left because I was being asked to teach from an unproven school program with my lowest readers. And I went, it feels like educational malpractice. And I don't think I can go to work every day and do what you're asking me to do. I'd also been promised to have a dyslexia therapy class, and they didn't give it to me. But at the end of the day, dyslexia therapy and failure-free reading were two ends of the spectrum, and I just couldn't make that leap. Not for the benefit of my children. But this was the sign. Mistakes are proof that you are trying. And we're going to make mistakes. Mississippi is making mistakes still. Today's time article time in just the Times was about the highest poverty levels based on 2022 data. How many of you are surprised that Mississippi's on there? Here's what's more surprising. The number one state for the highest poverty level is California. Number 2 is Florida. Number 3 is Mississippi. Now you can look at data all day long, but you better look underneath the data to see what's going on. In California, the majority of those poor districts are in Northern California, very rural areas. They are in places where the Spanish-speaking population outweighs the English-speaking population, and you're really trying to curve that, right? In Florida, it's the Panhandle. And in Mississippi, it's the whole state. We haven't solved our problems yet, but we can teach kids to read. So what do? Y'all are closing the gap. You are closing the gap. I heard it this morning, Demopolis being the number 1 in the nation for closing the gap for African American males. I couldn't tell you how much I just rejoiced at that, and know that I have invested many, many hours of my time in Demopolis because those families matter to me. Your KitchenAid mixer is when you're reading the romance novel at the beach. You can read a few sentences, go watch your kids, come back. You might have missed a paragraph. You still know what's going on. Okay, that's KitchenAid mixer reading. So automatic, you can fill in the blanks. You can go. Your whisk reading, that means you have to go back and dig a little more and get the dry ingredients and make sure that they all got mixed in there. That's when you're reading scientific research. How many of you have to read a line? Stop. Go read it again because you didn't quite get it the first time. Whisk it up and whisk it up. We can get there, but we need to know what our tools are for the task at hand. Now, it says up here long-term memory. Well, what is long-term memory? Well, it's our kitchen cabinets. Some of our kids come, and there's not a whole lot of background knowledge in there, and there's not a whole lot of vocabulary in there. And if I'm going to have them build something in their brain, I need to make sure they have what they need in their kitchen cabinets. So if they don't have the vocabulary, we have to teach. If they don't have the background knowledge, we better provide it. Because some of our kids have this for their kitchen cabinet. They're fully stocked. My daughter came with this kitchen cabinet and dyslexia. So this is what that looks like at kindergarten. It looks like this. The Short A, Short I book comes home and it says, the pig packed his bag for the trip. She reads, the pig packed a suitcase for the long vacation. Next page. So the kindergarten texts are box cakes, y'all. They just say, heat your oven, mix your stuff, bake. Done. Our 5th grade texts are, cream the butter and sugar for 2 minutes, add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and a 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. Wait until it rises. Like, y'all, it's a lot more to dig through. The recipes get a lot harder. But can they still make a cake? Because the goal is make the comprehension cake. Regardless of what tools you bring, regardless of how big your counter space is, regardless of what's in the cabinet when you start, our job is to figure out where the gaps are, where we need to build better tools, where we need to fill cabinets, where we need to break down recipes into more manageable steps. We have to be able to do that because every one of our children can build the comprehension cake. We are the only ones who can teach them to do that. Let's do the word no. Say no. No. Let's sound no. Mm-hmm. Good. The in no is Anglo-Saxon, so it has a silent letter. How do you spell in no?
K-N.
I can put my language in my how do you spell and add to it, and it doesn't change my flow. How do you spell O at the end of an English word?
O-W.
Okay. So we add how do you spell, say the sound, and then whatever the rules is. And if you can do that, it eliminates so much of the confusion for kids who say, what letter makes the sound? K, C, C, K, Q, X. I don't know which one you want, woman. Instead, it's this. Say kick. Sound kick. Very good. How do you spell before I?
K.
How do you spell it?
I.
How do you spell after a short vowel?
C-K.
See how it works? So if we can change our language and do this with demonstration, it'll stick. Some of it will actually get into your implementation, but it doesn't always make it into our classroom if we don't have enough practice. So practice, 65% stays in your classroom. Coaching is the only way to get it to full implementation. When I think about ARI and the impact that that is having in the reading coaches that we have, I know that that's the system in which the most improvement can be made. The most informed people support the most informed teachers, and the most informed teachers have the best results with their students. So our superheroes were all dyslexia therapists except for Kelly Butler. There was always, behind every story, there was a superhero. There was like Robin Lois going, if I'm going to implement science or reading something, I'm going to pick letters. Dr. Sina Holyfield, if you don't teach the dyslexic kids, you will never get anywhere. Where are the gaps? She started a school. She wrote a law. Lori Weathersby, she's not a doctor yet, who was in my class and who worked at the State Department until this past year. Now she's back at Rankin County. And Kelly Butler, who really has dedicated her life to making sure that every teacher has the resources that they need, the knowledge that they, that they request or that is mandated, and that what we have done lives on beyond our time. So that means that we've been getting a lot of attention. You might have seen the one on Lester Holt with another Rankin County teacher who went from 19%, or Rankin County School, 19% proficient 2 years ago, 62% proficient today. Y'all, it's always going to be about growth. Some people say, well, they just kept holding kids back. That's how their 4th grade scores are good. They kept all the bad ones back. Well, sure. Okay. But here's the thing. The newest article from the 74million.org compared kids that we put forth by passing just by a point or two into 4th grade with kids that we held back that had just failed by a point or two. Now we have a huge bank of these kids and we looked at their trajectory over time. The ones who were held back and given intensive remedial reading supports over time have done well. It's the first study that I know of that will definitively say what you have to do to keep a child back. It is not retention that is the solution. It is retention with intervention that is the solution. Pushing kids forward without their needed skills will always result in a bad outcome. And we want our kids, because what had happened up until then was that retention always has a negative impact. And like it increases, one retention increases the chance of dropout by 50%, two is up to 95% dropout. Okay, so we know that that's the data coming into this, but this is the first time that says, you know what, let's look at these two pots of kids. They're really statistically the exact same. Statistically, these kids are the same, 1 point lower, 1 point higher, those are the exact same on the cut score. Let's look at what happens over their trajectory and what was different. And I'm going to tell you that that is part of this reading revolution. It's being able to say from the data, these kids need this, and we know how to give it to them. So my dream is make this easier. An individualized reading instruction for every kid. Technology can help us. AI is going to help us. We're going to bring this together and help you do your job better. Fundraising helps you have the resources. In the state of Mississippi, they're still not giving us any more money, right? So we've got to inspire others to carry the message. We've got to empower you to make the difference. And we've got to keep learning, because you who continually improve are the answer. Supported by people who will fund the progress and leadership that will work at the state level. It does have one part that we haven't talked about, and that's what the spring of new teachers is. One of the things that happened in the state of Mississippi, thanks to Kelly Butler, was the implementation of EL1 and EL2 legislation. Our pre service teachers have to take early literacy 1, early literacy 2. It feels very much like letters volume 1, letters volume 2. Some of our institutions are doing a really good job, and some of our institutions aren't. You can put it into law, you can make people take a test, but you can't change people's hearts, right?
Right.
Better teacher preparation is the next solution. We cannot keep having to retrain our educators. We believe every teacher has the capacity to teach this critical skill.
We believe every teacher has the capacity to teach this critical skill.
We believe that tools to support individualization will lessen the load on our teachers.
We believe the tools to support individualization lessen the load on educators.
We believe that when we know better, we do better.